Hello everybody and welcome back to another election analysis. In today's video, we will be taking the latest poll from every single state and applying that to the electoral map, and we will be looking at how this electoral map looks after we look at every single poll from all 50 states. Before we get into this video, I do want to say, please subscribe. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. That's the goal. And if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy this video, please consider leaving a tip on YouTube, a super chat, or becoming a channel member for exclusive perks. So with that being said, let's get into this video. So again, we will be looking, we have the latest poll from every single state. So here's Alabama. We won't be talking about the Kennedy versus Trump and Kennedy versus Biden, but instead the Biden versus Trump latest head-to-head matchup poll. So we see, for example, in Alabama, the latest poll has Donald Trump up by 20 percentage points. Now, that's Alabama. There will be many different cases of that. Trump isn't leading by 20 points in every state, but he definitely is doing very well across the nation when you look at polling. Polling has been very strong for the Trump campaign for quite a while now. So a state like Alabama, we would say, is a safe state because it is over a 15% margin. That's a 20% margin for Donald Trump. So we will be going to do that for every state, and we will see how this electoral map plays out. You know, we have our safe and likely states where we generally know how they're going to vote, but it will be very interesting to see what the latest polls say in the swing states, in Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the states that really decide presidential elections. And it'll be interesting to see if there are any surprises in states that we regard as safe Democrat or safe Republican. So we will see on that. So Alabama's first. We're going in alphabetical order. In Alaska, we see that the latest poll. We are just going to do head-to-head matchups because some states have polls where third parties aren't included. You see here, Kennedy, Stein, and West aren't included, but some don't. But every state does have a head-to-head matchup between Biden and Trump, so that's what we will be looking at in this video, but it doesn't differ that much. 4 points isn't that much in Alaska. But we see in the latest head-to-head matchup poll, Biden versus Trump in Alaska, Donald Trump leads by 19%, so that's a safe margin. By the way, we have different characterizations for states, so Alaska and Alabama are safe states, which mean a 15% or higher margin for the respective candidate that wins the state. And then we have likely, which is like a lighter shade for the color, which is a 5 to 15% margin, and then lean, which is a 1 to 5% margin, and then finally tilt, which is a less than 1% margin. Looking at Arizona now. Arizona is one of the most critical swing states. You see that in 2020, Biden won the state, but he only won it by 0.3%. So this is definitely a state that Trump wants to win the presidency back. And we see that in the latest head-to-head poll, we see that when third parties are included, we see that Trump leads by 4, Trump leads by 2. But from the same pollster, when it is head-to-head, in the latest poll, Biden is ahead by 2. Biden is ahead by 2. So, Arizona would actually go to Biden by a lean margin. Now, that is not what the average shows. Trump leads by 4.6% on the average. But in the latest poll, that is what Biden leads by. In Arkansas, Trump leads by 32 in the latest head-to-head poll. No surprise there, I assume. In California, we see that in the latest poll, Biden leads by 20%. He won it by 29 in 2020, so that's a big trend towards the right, but still a good win for Joe Biden. And then we see in Colorado, we have some Kennedy polls, but then we have Biden versus Trump, and Biden actually leads by 10, which is a pretty good margin, considering his considering his win of 13% in 2020. In Connecticut, the latest poll shows Biden ahead by 9%, which is a significant decrease from the 20% that he won it by in 2020. So in Delaware, there aren't any head-to-head Biden versus Trump polls, unfortunately. But considering that, it means that it is definitely not a battleground state, and it did go to Biden by a very safe margin in 2020, so we can assume the same in 2024. There will be a couple states like that with no polls conducted yet. D.C. is another one, no polls conducted yet in Washington, D.C. And then we have Florida. one of the most critical well, it used to be one of the most critical battleground states. You see here that Trump now leads by 11% in 2024, which is really stunning. In the latest poll, Trump leads by 13%. 13. And that's insane because because he won it, Trump won it 4 years ago by just 3.4%. So that's a 10-point trend towards the Republican Party. That is just what Donald Trump needs. He does not want to focus too much on Florida. It would be nice to have it under his belt. We see that in the latest head-to-head poll between Biden and Trump in Georgia, a state that Biden won in 2020. Here it is, by 0.24%. It was something like 16,000 votes. We see that in the latest poll, head-to-head, Trump leads by 2%. Just a 2% margin there in Georgia for Trump, but still a win, and he wins the state's 16 electoral votes. So that's a major win for the Trump campaign, one that he definitely needs. And look at this. Now, this was really crazy when this was published, this poll. In the latest poll in Hawaii, a state that a lot of Trump supporters think is competitive because of Biden's response after the Maui wildfires, Biden only leads by 8%. Now, still, that's not, terribly narrow, but look at the 2020 margin. Biden won the state by 29.5%. That is 21% more Republican than it was in 2020. So that would be a real shock if it does get that close, and something that not many people expect. We see in the only head-to-head matchup poll, Trump leads by 29%. That's a safe margin for Trump in Idaho. In Illinois now, a state that Biden won by a safe margin, he now only leads by 10. So Illinois does go to Biden by a 10% margin there. Then we see that in Indiana, this is versus Haley, and then these are the Kennedy. So this is our latest head-to-head poll. And in, what was this? Indiana, okay. In Indiana, Donald Trump leads by 21%, so that's a safe margin there in Indiana for Trump. And then we have Iowa. And this was a real shock when it came out because this is a very trusted pollster, the Des Moines Register, in partnership with Ann Selzer and company. And Donald Trump leads by 15%, and he only won the state by 8 in 2020, so that's a 7-point trend to the right. So Iowa actually becomes a safe margin, which is really crazy because looking back at in history, we see that in 2012, Obama won the state by a likely margin. In just 2012. 2008, he won it by a likely margin. In 2004, Bush only won it by a tilt margin, less than 1%. The last time this state has it ever gone safe Republican in recent history. We see that even in the landslide of 1984, that it was likely only a 7-point margin for Reagan. The last time that it went safe Republican was in 1972 when it went to Nixon over McGovern by 17%. Just to show you how incredible that would be. Iowa going safe Republican. It hasn't happened since 1972. Moving on now to Kansas. In the latest head-to-head poll, Donald Trump does lead by a safe margin. That is quite an improvement from his likely margin win in 2020. Then we have Kentucky, where Donald Trump leads by 28% in the latest poll. And then we have Louisiana, where Donald Trump only leads by 15% in the latest poll, which is really... only 14% in the head-to-head, which is really shocking because he won it by 19 when you round in 2020. So why is he losing support in Louisiana? I don't know. I bet that is just a polling error. So Louisiana would actually be a likely state, which is interesting. In Maine, Kennedy polls excluded. This was a real shock when it came out. This got a lot of attention. So we see that Maine splits their electoral votes by the at-large vote as well as its congressional districts. So in the at-large vote, the general election, we see that Trump wins the state by 6%, by a likely margin, which is a major flip from 2020. Biden won the state by 9. That's a 15-point trend to the right if that does happen. The last time Maine at-large went Republican, we see that it went safe for Obama, likely for John Kerry, likely for Al Gore, safe for Bill Clinton. The last time Maine went Republican was 1988. George H.W. Bush won it over Michael Dukakis. So, That would be a major surprise if that does, in fact, happen. And then when you look at the congressional districts in the latest poll, Biden leads the first district by 8. Trump leads the second district by 20. And Trump only won the second district by 7 in 2020. By 7. So that is so interesting. In Maryland, latest head-to-head, Biden leads by 17%. That is a safe margin, not much of a surprise there. In Massachusetts, we see that Biden actually leads by 36 percentage points, a huge win for Biden in Massachusetts, but expected. In Michigan, one of the most critical battleground states, you see it's been narrowing for quite some time now. On average, Trump leads by 0.5%, but in the latest poll, head-to-head, Trump leads by 2%. Now, in this map, if this map were the actual election and we were going state by state waiting for election results, this would be a huge win for Trump because Michigan did go to Biden in 2020. He won it by 2.8%, so that's a flip that he desperately needs to win the 2024 election. In Minnesota, let's see, in the latest head-to-head poll with no third parties, Biden only leads by 2%. Now, we got lucky here because if this poll hadn't been conducted recently, we would have gone to this poll where Trump actually leads by 3%. So, Minnesota does go Democratic, but it is a very narrow lean margin, quite a decrease from 2020. In Mississippi, only one head-to-head poll conducted. Donald Trump leads by a safe margin there, 18%. In Missouri, Trump also, again, 18%. Good solid win for him there. In Montana, it's Trump plus 20. He won it by safe in 2020. And then in Nebraska, we see that so they also split their electoral votes by congressional and the second district. So we have a poll statewide where Trump leads by 23%. And then we don't have any polls from the first and third congressional district, but we do have one from the second district where Trump leads by 3%, which is definitely not good for the which is not good for the Biden campaign because Biden won the state by 6.6% back in 2020. So that'd be a 9-point trend to the right. So with no polls conducted in the third district and the first district, we can assume they would be safe. In Nevada, another critical battleground state, we see in the head-to-head, Donald Trump only leads by 3%, which is still good because this was a Biden state in 2020. This is yet another flip for the Trump campaign, but not as good as some of the previous polls we see here. Trump leads by 6, Trump leads by 8 in these two polls, and then there was one from the New York Times that showed Trump up by 14% in the state of Nevada. 14% would be absolutely insane. So, given the, 3% margin in Nevada, that is a lean state for the Trump campaign. Moving on now to New Hampshire. Let's see, Biden leads by 4% in the most recent poll. That is pretty in line with my prediction. Actually, I think it's a lean state. And then, now this is a real shock. Biden versus Trump. Biden only leads by 5% in the latest head-to-head poll. 6% actually went in the just head-to-head because the other one included third parties. So New Jersey is only a likely state for Biden when it was safe in 2020. As for New Mexico now, Biden leads by 8% in the latest head-to-head. That's a likely state. In New York, state that the Trump campaign is increasingly targeting, Biden is only ahead by 10, so that's a likely margin, when in 2020 he won it by 23, so that is quite a trend towards the Republicans. In North Carolina, mostly regarded as a battleground state, in the latest head-to-head, Trump is only ahead by 2. That is by a Democratic organization, though, so take it with a grain of salt. So North Carolina, would be a lean state for the Trump campaign. In North Dakota, only one poll conducted. Wow, look at that. Biden with just 17% of the vote. Trump wins there by a safe margin. Then you got Ohio here, where in the latest head-to-head, Donald Trump leads by 11%, which is a small decrease from where he was in 2020, but still a good margin there. He has made that state so much more Republican. In the state of Oklahoma, in the latest head-to-head, Donald Trump leads by 30%. And then we have Oregon, where, let's see, in the latest head-to-head, Biden only leads by 12%, which is a slight decrease from the 2020 margin. And then in Pennsylvania, critical 19 electoral votes, regarded as one of the most important battleground states in 2024. We see that in the latest head-to-head poll, Joe Biden wins by 2%. So that is the latest poll out of Pennsylvania. This is another Democratic it's a partisan sponsor for the Democratic Party, meaning it's a Democratic pollster. So this might be favoring Democrats a little bit, but we do have to hold true to the word and take the latest poll from every single state. So Pennsylvania would be a lean Democratic state. Rhode Island now, in the latest poll, Biden is ahead by 20. That's actually a decrease from 2020 again. In South Carolina, latest, Donald Trump is ahead by 14%, so that'd make it a likely margin state for him. In South Dakota, Trump is ahead by 19, so that's safe. And then we have Tennessee, another safe state. That's an 18% margin in the latest poll. And then we have Texas, a state where Biden did come close in 2020. Trump only won it by 5.6% back in 2020. But this time around, we see that in the latest poll, Donald Trump is ahead by 8%, a pretty good margin for him there. That's a 3% increase, not even, from where he was in 2020, though. Utah is next. No third parties. Trump is ahead by 28%, which is a very good margin there. In Vermont, of course, it's safe for Biden, one of the most democratic states in the nation. And now, before we go anymore, let's just look at this electoral map. Donald Trump is at 268. Biden is at 228. You need 270 to win. All Donald Trump needs to do is carry one more state. So, considering the fact that we have West Virginia over here and Wyoming, two solidly Republican states, Donald Trump is on path to victory. But looking at Virginia, in the latest poll, it's even. So, I guess if we don't look at that, then let's look at the most recent before that, where Donald Trump loses by 4% to Biden. Biden leads in Virginia by 4%. That's a lean margin win there. In Washington, Biden continues to hang on. He leads by 16% there, so that's a safe margin. But now we get to West Virginia, where there has only been one poll conducted, Biden versus Trump. Trump leads by 37%, and with their 4 electoral votes, he crosses 270, and he does win the presidency. In Wisconsin, in the latest poll, we see that without third parties in the most recent head-to-head, Biden leads by 2%. So according to the most recent poll, Biden is ahead in Wisconsin. So that's interesting considering the fact that this was the closest state for him in 2020. It voted out of the blue wall, and it voted for Trump the most out of the blue wall. So this is the most Republican, but it still does go to Biden in 2024, while Michigan goes to Trump. So that will be interesting to see how it plays out. And of course, Wyoming is safe Republican. So look at this electoral map. I think it's going to be a very close election, and the polls believe that as well. When you take the latest poll from every single state, we see that Donald Trump wins, but with just 275 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 263, a very narrow victory for Trump in this election, but he still does come out with the win, and he is elected the next president. But again, only 270 are needed to win, so a very small win. So thank you all for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please, give me a subscription. That helps out a lot. Become a channel member for exclusive perks and all that. And make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and I will see you all next time.